Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Aliens and UFOs. Today I want to talk about a very bizarre story involving a man from Wisconsin that happened in 1961, where he claims that a UFO landed in his front yard and a couple beings made him some pancakes. Yeah, imagine that. So, this happened on Eagle River in Wisconsin on April 1961. For years, the UFO community has regarded this as a hoax, and, many still do. However, a lot of people, think it does have some authenticity. Well, anyway, the name of the man who was involved with this was Joe Simonton. He was a chicken farmer and was regarded as an upstanding member of his community. He ran a chicken farm, and he would act as a plumber and auctioneer in the small Eagle River community, and was described as the Santa Claus for Eagle River Chamber of Commerce Christmas events. In short, and particularly in such a small community, Simonton would have little to gain but quiet ridicule upon his character by fabricating or manufacturing such an event. The encounter only apparently lasted 5 minutes. However, it would leave a lasting impact on the UFO community for years to come. So it goes around on the 18th of April in 1961 at around 11 a.m., Joe Simonton looked on in amazement as he saw a flying saucer descend out of the morning sky and land on his farm. He had been enjoying a late breakfast this particular morning when a sudden sound had brought him to his front porch. The object, according to Simonton's later report, was silver but brighter than chrome and stood approximately 12 feet high and around 30 feet in diameter. The object would land, and almost immediately a hatch opened in the side of the silver exterior inside the craft. 3 dark-skinned humanoid aliens were visible. They appeared to be wearing a uniform of sorts, dark blue or black, that featured helmet caps and turtleneck collar. So they're not your typical grays. They appear to be, sort of like us, maybe on the spectrum, maybe like the Nordic aliens that have been, cited throughout time, famously with like such the Travis Walton case. Well, anyway, Simonton would state these humanoids were Italian looking. And watching the entire scenario unfold, Simonton remained where he was as the 3 humanoids ventured out of their craft. Simonton noticed that they were carrying a beautiful thing, a thermos jug-like bottle, quite unlike any jug he had ever seen here on Earth. The jug had 2 silver handles, almost resembling maybe like a, stock standard trophy. It was made from the same material as the craft, which appeared, at least to him, to be heavier than aluminum, but lighter than steel. He then realized these visitors required water. He would tell Franklin Carter, a Wisconsin judge and UFO researcher, that they did not speak, but the one did motion by tipping his head backward and making motions as if drinking. He took the jug from the alien humanoid, who still had not uttered a word, and went inside to fill it up with water. Well, after Simonton was done filling up this mysterious jug, he returned outside with the jug now filled with water and passed it back to his visitor, who looked appreciative, almost as if saying thank you. Well, as he reached to pass the jug back, he had to lean his left hand side and left hand on the side of the craft. He would apparently suffer no ill effects from doing so, no burns or anything, which sometimes happens in, the abduction stories I see. They'll, someone will touch the craft, or they'll get like burned, or say it's like really hot. Doesn't seem to be the case for Simonton. Well, as he did lean on the left side, he could see inside of the craft further. Inside, he could see the other 2 occupants more clearly. They were he would claim chained or belted to their workstations, presumably for safety reasons. One was engaged at a panel in front of him while the other was cooking food on a heating unit of some kind, he would elaborate. And in Simonton's own words, he said, I couldn't see any heated grill nor flames, yet he seemed to be cooking or frying cakes. I was interested in them, and the man in the hatchway noted my interest and walked over and scooped some of them up and gave them to me. They looked somewhat like pancakes. You know, in the photo, they looked very, well, they're kind of like burnt, you know, kind of look like a graham cracker. You know, also, he said that himself. Well, all while no verbal communication ensued to me nor to each other in any kind of language whatsoever. So, Simonton would comment later, however, on a gesture by the humanoid upon receiving the water, where he placed the tips of his right hand to his forehead and immediately withdrew it. This, to most, would appear to be a salute or gesture of thankful respect. Just think of, like, you know, a military salute where you put your hand up to your head. It's kind of what this entity did. This would certainly appear to be the impression Simonton got as he responded with a military salute, just like the one I said, which the visitor appeared to understand as "you are welcome" as intended. Then the hatch shut again, tight. Instantly, there was no longer even an indication that the hatchway had even been there. No seams, hinges, or telltale marks of an opening, just seamless, smooth, metallic silver. Then the ship began to rise from the ground several moments after the hatch sealed shut. It would rise in tips slightly before shooting forward and away into the sky. Simonton would state witnessing a pine tree being bent completely back at the same time by some kind of backwash from the power of the craft as it left. However, despite moving back and forth several times, when it came to a stop, the tree was undamaged. Simonton's description of the ship is also interesting in terms of other very similar descriptions of the area, and indeed similar sightings and encounters going back to the late 1940s. He would recall in his report that it looked like two plates or bowls which were inverted over the top of each other. I'll put a picture of the drawing they made of this craft. Furthermore, upon reflection, he realized that the ship was in fact hovering ever so slightly above the ground as opposed to actually touching down. This would perhaps explain why many such sightings leave no markings of their presence. After this craft took off, out of curiosity, Simonton ate one of the pancakes the visitors had gifted him. He would later recall to the press how it tasted like cardboard. I have a interview that I'm going to put in, and he actually tells us in the interview. It's pretty interesting. I guess it's pretty bold to take a bite out of that. Some kind of like intergalactic pancake of some sort. So yeah, this is quite a story. I mean, there's probably one of the few times from what I've read that there involves some kind of sustenance that is shown in one of these stories. It's pretty crazy. Never really hear this sort of thing when, alien abductions. It's usually like experiments and, along those sort of lines. So I'm going to put in this interview and I'm going to let it play. So here's the interview Simmons gave. This was filmed in the 60s. So without further ado, here is said interview.
Of Eagle River, Wisconsin, spins a yarn about an April morning in 1961. A morning when he says he came face to face with another world.
Right here is where this flying saucer, this UFO, landed. Right here about where I'm standing. And it was a big, huge thing, and I wondered what the heck it was. I was in my kitchen having a bite of lunch, and I turned around, put the dishes in the sink, and I looked out the window, And that's when I first saw this thing coming straight down, just like an elevator. And first I thought the roof went off of my house. And I thought, no, the roof is green and this is bright. What the heck is it? So I rushed out to see what it was. And by that time, there was a hatchway opening up in the top of it, just like the trunk of your car. And in there stood a little man. I say a little man, about 5 foot tall, holding up a jug or a container. And he motioned, he wanted to drink. He motioned for water. So I walked up to him to get this jug, and I looked at his eyes, and they were so penetrating that I had to look away. So I went to the basement to get this water, and I thought, well, they want water, so I'll take it up to them and see what happens. And with that, I brought the water up, and he was looking at me when I first came out of the basement. But I didn't look at his face until I got right up to him. Then I looked up, and I handed the jug up with both hands, and I had that same look in his eyes, a sort of a penetrating look. And when he took the water, I balanced myself with this hand against the machine, and I stepped back a few steps. And then with that, he set the jug down, and he gave me a salute with the back of his hand, a gesture of thanks, I presume. And then, well, I gave him my salute. What am I going to do? So I noticed this little man, same size of a man, right by the right side of the hatchway, cooking these pancakes, which I have one here yet. He was frying these pancakes, and I pointed to him and made a gesture like eating. I thought maybe I'd get a conversation out of him. Nobody was saying anything. But he didn't say a word. He just reached over and he got a handful of them, 4 of them, and he handed them down to me. And they were hot and greasy. And this man cooking these pancakes, it was on a square grill-like concern. I couldn't see any flame, but it seemed to be very hot. There was smoke coming from it. And if that was their food, God help them, because I took a bite of one of them, and it tasted like a piece of cardboard. And if that's what they lived on, no wonder they're small. And with that, he reached up and he closed this hatch with a heavy thud click-like, and it latched. And you couldn't a bit more see where that hatch was, and you could see a hole in my hand. And with that, the thing started to raise, just like it came down. Everything was timed perfect. It went up about 20 feet. It tilted at 45 degrees, straight south, and shot off. And within 2 or 3 seconds, it was out of sight. Well, there I stood in the driveway with a handful of greasy pancakes, my mouth open, wondering what the heck I'd saw, what had happened.
It is outside the realm of the Air Force to pass judgment on Mr. Simonton's case. However, the pancakes that he turned over to the Air Force were turned over to the Food and Drug people, and they were analyzed as pure buckwheat pancakes.
So there you have it. Quite an interview. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think he was being truthful? Do you think he was just that hungry and just hallucinated the whole thing? I'd really love to know your guys' thoughts. Well, that wraps up this episode. I'll see you guys next time. Subscribe and let me know in the comments if there's any other, weird stuff, aliens, cryptids or anything like that you want me to check out. I'll do my best to cover it all. All right. Thank you. Take care.